the greatest.
Hey, you know J. Ray got girls here going way, 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 way.
It's been a long time, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry for the inconsistency. I'm getting close to graduation. But I'd like to introduce my guest for this episode. He is a commander for the SLHC, the Supremacist League of Habersham County.
Oh my gosh.
Joe, why? No,
that is so not true. Are you kidding me?
No, I'm joking. I'm joking. This is Joe. You see, Joe, I had to put it down there to remind myself how to do the joke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought of it. I was like, it's funny. I don't want to forget it, so I wrote it down.
Think that, but the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And that's me.
Joe's the direct opposite. He actually wrote an article yesterday after the whole election thing. And
the election thing.
Yeah, I'm not a political guy. Joe's more
I
a
know.
political guy. You're a journalist as well. He's a professor here at Piedmont University. You guys should know by the other episode, but you guys don't watch my hour episode, so we'll try to keep this 30 minutes. But we're going to have a great conversation. I think that's actually what we'll do. We'll save that for
We'll just talk.
Yeah, we'll just talk. So, Joe, that was a beautiful article, by the way.
Thank you. I'm a really good writer.
You are. Hence, he's our professor, so he has the credentials to prove that. But Joe, how did you feel when you woke up that morning and you found out Trump was our president?
Well, I went to sleep watching the results, and to be clear, my political views do not align with Donald Trump, and it's not even the fact that it's a conservative liberal thing. Mm-hmm. It's more so the kind of person he is, mm-hmm. and kind of the hateful rhetoric that he spreads, and how he empowers people who are hateful. Mm. They feel empowered by him, and that's the kind of stuff that I just despise. And so when I went to sleep Tuesday night, election eve, or on election night, I kind of figured, I kind of figured he was going to win because I went to, right before I went to sleep, the media was talking about, it's looking really good for him. Mm-hmm. And then so when I woke up Wednesday morning, first thing I did, of course, is look at my phone, and the first thing I see is the AP alert, Donald Trump wins historic, mm-hmm. election. And I was just like, huh. And it's interesting because my wife and I align politically, feel pretty much the same way about Donald Trump especially. And we just kind of looked at each other and just like, damn, mm-hmm. And then that was really all I kind of thought about, because we have a routine in the Dennis household, have to get the kids up, have to get them to the bus stop, mm-hmm. eat breakfast, shop, all the usual morning stuff. And so mm-hmm. I didn't really think about it too much, but then I realized that in my job here at Piedmont, one of the things that I try to encourage students to do is complete evaluations that the institution wants us to have completed, and high percentage rates of completion. And so I always incentivize students mm-hmm. with candy and donuts and pizza and food, because y'all are like hungry all the time. It's bizarre. But anyway, so I said, if you get 70% on this evaluation, 70% participation, I'll bring donuts. And we were like at 61%. So my thought was, I'm not getting them donuts. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, well, wait a second. I know a lot of students kind of might be struggling this morning with mm-hmm. the election results. For many people, it's kind of the first election they voted in. Mm-hmm. And I remember that feeling, being really sad and disappointed. So I was like, well, maybe I should get donuts, but I don't want to, you didn't meet the mark. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to give you, a full dozen donuts. So I was like, maybe donut holes, like Munchkins at Dunkin', or, they have these little minis at Krispy Kreme. Maybe I'll do that. Mm-hmm. And then I got a text from a former student who graduated in 2018.
I saw that in the article. I was like, oh, maybe that was a part. I was like, well, this is getting good. I didn't know this part.
I haven't communicated with Olivia in 5 months was the last time we communicated. But it's not like I don't typically communicate with her. But she just texted me, you better get your students donuts this morning. And I'm like, oh, okay, I got to get the donuts.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of the whole premise of my my column that I wrote. And I'm glad I did, because when I came in the office yesterday morning, like right away, there were a bunch of students that wanted to talk about the election and just wanted to vent. And it was great. I had about 7 students in my office at one point. You were one of them, roaming in and out.
I'm Green Party, guys. I just found out about the Green Party throughout that whole election thing. But yeah, I'm Green Party now, I think. But that goes into my next thing, Joe, because there's so much I got to unpack. I want to unpack, especially like I'm rereading the article in my head. But one thing I think we discussed too when I came in, like I was joking about the Green Party, but I do. Like, I'm not a political person. I'm not really into politics, so I'm not really Democratic or Republican. I'm more of now an observer. Because what I used to do was I used to not even pay attention to it. But now that, I'm about to go out in the world and be a journalist and I have to present this to the people, it's good to have some knowledge of it. So over the few years that I have done my news reports on my radio shows, and I've got a little into it, just not as deep as I want to. But my first, I guess, attempt to really teach myself about it was this year's debate, the Joe Biden one.
Okay.
And I was like, yeah, was
brutal.
This was the worst. This was the worst timing to try to get into politics, because with that, and then him dropping out, and then Kamala Harris, and then Trump's all his shenanigans throughout this whole year, this whole election has just been a big joke to me. And it proves somewhat, some people may argue, to my point of why politics are kind of dumb. And it's more of a show than it is a way to actually get this country on track to where it needs to be. That's the only reason I've never really paid attention to politics. Not because it's boring. It's just because from the subsurface of what I can see, or what I see, or what I hear, every time something political pops up on my phone, or I have CNN or NBC, I'm like, what the like I see Instagram comments, and it kills me, because some people are like, at this point the election is just ghetto. It's just a reality TV show at this point. And that's really what this one turned out to be.
But I do want to say that it wasn't always like that, and I know people of this generation of like who are typically in college. I know you're really old. You're like 50, but your classmates. This is all they've known. Yeah. So I understand that viewpoint, because Donald Trump has been involved in politics since about 2011. That's when he really started to get political, when he made the allegation that Obama was not born in America, that he was born in Kenya. And it really started...
I'm laughing because he tried to pull that on. I remember he tried to pull something like that on comedy.
Yeah. And then of course 2014 he announced he was running, and then we had so the last 10 years, and now by the time he leaves office, gosh, it's going to be 14 years. He has been involved in politics, and Trump is a showman. I mean, that's maybe the only. Well, it's not even a positive trait. I'm not saying it's a positive trait, but he is a good entertainer, and I used to enjoy listening to Donald Trump and watching him. I watched The Apprentice because it was funny, because he, you're fired, and like he would always just cut people off, and he was very brutal and cutthroat, and it was funny. I listened. He was a frequent guest and a good friend of Howard Stern, and I listened to that show. And whenever Trump was on, I would always listen, because he was very funny. He would just be almost like a comedian, but more like a showman. And I liked that. I thought it was funny. I thought it was an act, but I realized that I don't want that in my politics. And that's kind of funny. It's one of the cognitive dissonance things that, like, even Howard Stern had talked about, because they're not friends anymore, because Howard would not endorse Trump to be president. He's like, what Donald doesn't understand, we used to be friends, is that I like him as a friend. I like him as a guest on my show. I like him as a showman. I don't want him to be president. Just like I'm sure you all have friends that you're like, yeah, I like you. You're a cool guy. You should not be president.
Yeah. Yeah, that's. I want to go back a little bit though, because that made me think a little bit, because that is how, like, 2016 was my first time actually, because I just graduated high school, And it was funny because my very first roommate at Dalton State, my first year of college, he was a little older than me. He was kind of in the position I'm in now. I think he was going back to school, but he was just older than everybody. Like I'm 18, he was like 20 something, but it was his freshman year. So, and that was my first time talking to somebody about politics, like about Trump, because I think that's when he had just won first time, like you said.
Right.
And that was my first time having the conversation. But like I said, I'm not politically knowledgeable enough to have those conversations, but I could speak of what I know, what I experienced, because my mom, 24/7, she watches CNN all day, every day. Like if it's her off day, that's all she does. It's between Lifetime, CNN, ABC News, ET, Entertainment. That's all she does. But yeah, from just those little moments of what I've read for my radio shows, it just goes to show, like, yeah, that's literally all I know about politics. Like you said, it might have been different before that. You know, I really didn't know these, like the seriousness or the impactfulness of the 2008 election when Obama was president.
Right.
Things of that nature. So,
And speaking of 2008, like I was actually going to talk about that briefly. Like that election had Barack Obama and the late Senator now, John McCain. And there was a moment in that election that was so telling because John McCain was a Republican, of course. Obama was the Democrat. And McCain was doing a town hall, and one of the people in the town hall said, you know, I'm so glad you're running, Senator. I don't want Obama to win. I can't stand Obama. I can't, and said he's an Arab. I can't stand him. And at that time, we were still at the peak of the Iraq War, Afghanistan War. So there was a lot of, you know, fear of Muslim Americans or Muslims in general. And John McCain interrupted her at his town hall and said, "Sir," he said, "Ma'am, no, that's not true. That's not true. He's not an Arab, and he's a really good person. I know, the senator. He's a good person and wants what's best for this country. I just disagree with him politically."
Wait, John McCain said that?
John McCain said
Barack
that.
Obama?
Yeah. And to me, like,
that's so refreshing. Sorry, Joe.
yeah,
That's so refreshing.
that's where we were at in 2008. And it's just, I mean, that would never happen now.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
You know, somebody said that too. I think, I don't know where I watch. I watch so much stuff, but I saw somewhere where somebody said politics would be so much better, it'd be so much more respected. And it probably would, you know, kind of bleed off into actually how this country is run if, like, politicians were just honest, like completely honest. But that's one thing people always say, though. I don't know if you agree with that, Joe, that Trump, despite you may not agree with what he says, but he's always honest about what's on his mind. That's one thing you have to respect about him, I guess.
Absolutely. I mean, I do think that's true. I mean, I think, you know, he delivered on a lot of the promises that he had when he was first elected in 2016. A lot of the policies I vehemently disagree with. But again, I can get over that. That's fine. And policies, as I wrote in an email to students yesterday, like, policies are not permanent. Things change, things evolve. But what I can't stand about him is the rhetoric and how he goes about demeaning people and degrading people. One, as a Christian, Sunday school teacher, like, that is totally unacceptable in my eyes. But two, like, it's just, what it does is that's the president of the United States, the highest job in the country. There should be some semblance of I don't even know what the word is I'm looking for, but there should be some semblance of character in that position. And I'm not even talking about, people will say, he's a felon, and I'm not even talking about the criminal indictments and stuff like that. Or I'm talking about just how he talks about people, like, is just people he disagrees with right away. They're enemies. They're evil. They're dogs. He calls them all kinds of names, and that's just. I can't stand that. I think it's very wrong. And I strongly feel that any Christian who supports him and is emphatic about that they're wrong. Like, they're going to have to face their judgment because that's wrong.
And I did read that in your article. You did say use the word Christ-like. And I talked to Eric about that too. I talked with Eric Edmondson, which I'll probably have another conversation like this with him. And it's another thing because I'm when it comes to politics and religion, I am very, you said it, I'm very open-minded to it, but it has to make sense because I'm an overthinker. So I have to, everything has to align. Like, I think that's why the subject of math used to confuse me so much because I used to, it's almost like teachers want you to just do it and not ask questions. And I was one of those students where it killed me because I'm like, why is this letter here? Like,
love that.
Why does X equal this? And how does the letter equate to a number? When am I going to use, and then later in high school, obviously after algebra and like middle school, later in high school, pre-cal, like where am I going to use this other than science? Like, why am I doing, like, I would just, and
Sure.
it would really confuse me. So growing up, I was always an overthinker. It still kills me today. It's like a gift and a curse. But like you said, with Christ, like, and it goes into everything we stand for this country. Like when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, it's
Under God, yeah.
everything. So it's like, how can y'all elect someone that doesn't fit the Christian values, even as much as the presidential characteristics, like you said? So it.
And what's fascinating is, a large segment of the Christian population in the country, that is like they outwardly, proudly endorse him.
Trump, but
which
I'm like,
I don't
the things that
understand.
come out of his mouth are like the total opposite.
Exactly.
And I'm not, like I said, I haven't paid attention enough to Trump to even have a opinion on him like a lot of you have. But I'm just saying, like I said, from what I see and what I hear, it's like, all right, it's kind of contradictory, but you still want me to vote and you still want me to. But at the same time, Joe, it's. And then there's also another thing I wanted to ask you too. So when I was at Dalton State, I took this class. Here's a professor. I feel like I wish he would come to Piedmont and actually teach. He's kind of like you guys with Professor Hudgens and Joe and DVC, open-minded, always teaching us not just the curriculum, but things that can correlate to life along with the curriculum. But he was really good at his job. I think he was like a social. It was economics. There was something in history.
Okay.
But we always one of the conversations we had was a political conversation, and one thing he said was, I have to be honest with you guys. There's and this guy, he's legit. He goes to rallies and stuff. He's in there, Joe. So but one thing he said, he was like, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Your votes, they matter, but they really don't. And he was like, I'll have to be honest with you. And I would never expect it, let alone a professor, anyone to say that. And so I kind of ran with that. That was kind of like my blanket of, that's why I'm not voting, because my professor back in 2017 said to. But when I actually started doing a little bit of research, I was like, okay, at least I can say locally, you should vote locally, like your mayors, your whatever, city councils, whatever. As far as like the higher rankings, just because it's crazy, but I want to hear.
Well, yeah. And one thing that I want to challenge you on with that is, not to go back to math, but yes, in the grand scheme of things, one vote doesn't matter, but that's just because there's 80 million votes, right? Or 150 million votes. I don't know what the total is going to be. But there are some people, and I challenged another student yesterday who I also inspired my column, who had said, it's not personal, it's just politics.
Oh, that's good.
And I said in my column, if you feel that politics isn't personal, then I wish you could be a fly on the wall yesterday morning in my office and you heard from an undocumented student, who was brought across the border as a 2-month-old, had no choice to come to be in the United States. Her very real fear of being deported because, one of Trump's biggest policies, one of the few policies he talked about over and over and over again and ran commercials was mass deportations of all illegal immigrants. no exceptions.
Is that a part of Project 25 that people are talking
I don't think that's more Trump.
Trump.
And so, yeah, her fear is very real.
Yeah.
It's very real. Another student who is bisexual, concerned that she won't be able to marry the love of her life, because this is where we get into Project 2025, because, part of Project 2025 is to reshape the Supreme Court even more so. We think it's conservative now, but to reconsider issues like gay marriage and even interracial marriage, which is just absurd to me. But that's a very real concern. So these were the concerns that were being expressed in my office. And to say that, oh, it's not politics, isn't personal, when you have a candidate who has actively campaigned on issues like this, of course it's personal. So going back to your vote doesn't matter, I yes and no. I feel if enough people say my vote doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter. For me personally, I like to know that I have, and my conscience, I don't want to say my conscience is clear, but I know that whatever happens in the next 4 years, I didn't have a part to do in that, because I didn't vote for him. And with that said, there's also responsibility. I voted for Joe Biden, and there were things that he has done that I disagree with, especially with with how he handled things like in Afghanistan. Some of the economics policies he's had, I disagree with, but I own that, but your vote is, is your voice as an American citizen.
That is true. Joe, I think we talked about this yesterday, but they don't know. I'm end my rant with this is that some of the things you just said, yeah, that's true. Because often I get most of I'll read articles, but the funnest part is like when they post something on Instagram and just let people give their opinions. And of course you're going to have those as, I'm not going back to slavery or this, that, and the third. But then you have people that are actually into this and they bring up stuff they actually pay attention like you do and pay attention to his policies, and they list all these things. And I'm like, wow, maybe this, and they say it every year, like, you got to get out and vote. This is the most important election. They say that every year. But when I look at the grand scheme of things, and when I actually, like the night of the electoral, like I didn't stay up too long, but I stayed up enough to, teach myself a little bit from what NBC was saying. And this might be the most important because it's like you said, he's trying to shape it around more conservative. But I also didn't realize, I always kind of knew the House and Senate?
Yeah.
They're the ones who kind of veto and push what the president wants to do. They have to approve it pretty much. I saw like the Republican, I think they won both, didn't they?
We don't know about the House yet, but they probably will. And the Senate, why that's important is because they confirm all of his judicial nominees. And so he will reshape the judiciary because the Republicans have control of the Senate. So he will totally reshape it however he wants. And it's why just recent history in 2016, when a conservative Supreme Court justice died, Obama was still president, but because Republicans controlled the Senate, they would not approve his appointment to replace the Supreme Court justice who died. So that's why as soon as Trump became president, he was able to appoint someone. So yeah, that's a very real fact. And it's not just the Supreme Court, it's all these higher courts, any federal court, federal district courts, the president gets to appoint that. And so as long as they have a Senate that agrees with them, he'll be able to do that.
Okay. Yeah, Joe, I don't know. From what you said, I guess, yeah, because it was a time when we couldn't vote. A lot of minorities, we didn't have the right to vote. Now that we have at least somewhat consciously a right to say how we feel about this country or determine who we want to run this country and dictate who we want to control our lives, pretty much. I think I will vote next year. I will do more research. But I do want to say still, though, like if I don't agree, if I do my research and I see that whenever the election day is the next 4 years, if the people that are on the ballot do not align with what I think is right, I will still not vote.
Mm-hmm.
And we can say the last few years it's been a headache because we have things like gun control that needs to be assessed. You have multiple mass shootings. I think, I don't know the statistics, but murders by gun is probably at the highest, if not. Human trafficking is a big issue right now.
Yeah, one of the things about gun control that I know is a stat that really is just so striking to me, and of course, as a father of 3 kids, that the number one cause of death for people under 18 is guns. I mean, more than traffic accidents. Mm-hmm. And that used to be number one. Of course, when you're under 18, their health concerns aren't usually an issue.
Exactly.
So the number one cause of death is guns. And that is just unbelievable.
Police brutality, you can also put that under the gun form. Inflation, but yet we're worried about, like you said, same-sex marriage. Worried about fucking... Yeah. What was the women's rights and what they can do with their bodies? Like, why can we not, like, just one, like, let me see just one policy put in form where it's like, okay, yeah, like Obamacare. I get that. That's for the middle class people. That was for people who couldn't afford health care. But like over the last few years, I haven't seen anything, and I'm gonna be honest, I haven't done the research, but just from what I've seen, Obamacare is like maybe the only one I kind of agree with. Like, okay, finally somebody doing something, and I know it's not easy for a president. I worked with a guy at Home Depot, and he's really into this. And one thing he opened my mind to was like, we can't expect the president to change the world in 4 years, and it's not even his 100% call. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. And the other thing is hard to please everyone. Like, you can make this decision and you could think it's right for everyone, but there's going to be that 30% to 40% that are like, no, I think you should go the other way around. So the president is a hard job, but I'm just saying I haven't seen anyone really try to. Aside, my parents say Bill Clinton did a good job. I don't know if you would agree with that.
I mean, the economy was really, really good under Bill Clinton.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was like 4, maybe 5, so I didn't know.
But even then, I don't know how much power the president has to control the economy, or I think some of the, like, for instance, the immigration issue, right? The president does have the power almost unilaterally to enact immigration policy. Mm-hmm. Whereas anything economic related, he does need the support of Congress, for that, which he'll have. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
We'll see how things go. Is that it? I think we'll wrap this one up, and then we'll do a part 2, Joe. How does that sound?
I love it.
Yeah.
Great.
Thanks, Joe. You gave me a really good social studies lesson. I enjoyed that. Hope to get more out of you, too. Joe, you should teach 2 classes. That was really good.
Read my article. It's going to be in the link.
Oh yeah, Joe, I'm gonna put it in the description. No, I can't. Yeah, it's gonna be in the description. I was like, I can't put the link right. I can't click it, but yeah, I was gonna like.
You can't like in post prod like put a little like thing right here.
Yeah, but they can't click it. That's the problem.
Oh yeah,
because like YouTube, it's like not. Somebody needs to invent that where you can interact. It'll happen.
That would be nice.
Not under Trump, but it'll happen one day. But yeah, I'll put it in the link. Definitely put it in the link, most definitely. So you can check that out. The link below us, right here. Just scroll down. There you go, and then click it. Joe, do you want to shout out any other socials before I do my awkward outro?
No, that's okay. I don't really like people, so.
That's valid, Joe. All right. Here comes the awkward outro. I want to thank everybody for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode with me and Joe, our political talk. If you want more, subscribe or follow. That's what the professionals told me over the summer. They say you shouldn't say subscribe, say follow, even though the button says subscribe. I don't get. Follow, like, comment, please. Follow me for more updates, teasers, and what's up next on Instagram, real.t.radio, TikTok, Real Talk Radio with 2 O's. I have an upcoming documentary coming out. I forgot what the name of the YouTube is called, but I'll put the link right here. Yeah, right there where Joe's pointing. And yeah, you guys can subscribe there and check that out. It'll be should be posting and premiering November 21st on a Thursday, 6 p.m. sharp.
All right, I'm putting that on my calendar.
Are you going to show up, Joe?
Yeah.
Joe's coming to my premiere. Yeah, it's going to be exciting, y'all. Like I said, it's getting close to graduation. It's crunch time and stressed out, but luckily I get to sit down with Joe and eventually, like, every once in a while do a podcast and kind of relieve my stress and free my mind from the real world, even though we talked about politics. But I think that's it. That's all I have. Haven't done this in a long time. See you in the next one. Bye.